Futures trading involves a substantial risk of loss and may not be suitable for all investors. Therefore, carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your financial condition.
Good morning. It's Thursday, January 15th. I'm Phil Streible, Chief Market Strategist at Blue Line Futures. So quite a range in the overnight market, in the silver market. You had a low of about 86.12 and a high of 93.70. Looking at futures last year, trading right around $91, down about 36 cents. So the volatility really continues here in the precious metals. So traders, they've been closely monitoring the results of the U.S. Commerce Department, their investigation on whether import of certain metals and also critical minerals here posed any kind of threat to national security. So silver prices, they fell as investors appeared to take profits, especially as the U.S. decided not to impose import tariffs on these critical minerals. And I think that this is one of the larger threats to the rally in the silver market because of the fact that if you look at other trading hubs around the globe here, that's where those inventories have come down quite a bit. And that's where a lot of the exports that have come into the U.S. here to avoid any kind of import tariffs have taken place. If you look at the United States, we are absolutely flush with silver. You look at the COMEX as record amounts of silver and inventories. But when you start to go to other trading hubs, you start looking at London, you start looking at China, Hong Kong, Dubai, other areas here where we've really seen those inventories draw down. If this could potentially reverse that process, it could really open up the gates here for a larger sell-off, in my opinion. Just something to be aware of in these markets. Now, I do believe that as we get closer to that $100 mark, that it will be a gravitational pull towards that. But you definitely want to watch some of these headlines that are taking place with regarding these import tariffs here and any kind of tax on these critical minerals. Now, if you look at gold, that 14-day average true range sitting right around $88.30. The critical level of support on the gold market, about $250 lower. So 43.40 is your key level of support. You go to the silver market, the average true range just under about $5. And the way that the exchange is looking at is they're looking at the average true range, they're looking at that notional value, and then they're tacking on a percentage of that notional value as the margin requirements. So as prices go up, those margin requirements are going to go up with it. As prices come down, we should see those margin requirements, they will decline with it as well. So your critical level of support, $78.85, so about $12 below here. And given the fact that you got a $5 average true range, it's not out of the ordinary to see this market kind of move in these larger gyrations and potentially string together 2 or 3 days in one of these directions. So just as the market could go up, volatility could also surge. As markets go up, they can also come back down. Now you look at the gold, the year to date, the ETF flows here. Well, you got total gold held by ETFs. It rose about 0.4% this year to 99.4 million ounces. And that's the highest level since September 8th, 2022. It was the third straight day of growth. And they only added about 12,000 troy ounces of gold to their holdings. You look at gold year to date, up about 7.1%, tacking on just under 1% here in that previous trading session. You look at silver, year to date, declining about 1% here, and they did cut about 658,000 troy ounces of silver in their holdings in that previous trading session. So the gold silver ratio sitting at about 50-1. Now you look at the outside markets here, like the macro markets, the U.S. equities, well, they are rising overnight. And this comes after a week filled with geopolitical tensions, with Trump wildcards, and the AI story is back, really boosting stocks. So you see ASML and other semiconductor equipment stocks surging after TSMC set bullish CapEx target that really exceeded any analyst expectations. You got NVIDIA leading the Mag 7 higher in pre-market trading after TSMC's stronger than anticipated sales forecast. You do have energy and mining shares both edging lower, tracking that drop in commodity prices. So quite a bit of pressure here on the energy sector. Natural gas rebounding a bit. The farther out you go on the natural gas, prices are continuing to decline. You do have a bit of a pause here in Bitcoin, and then you also have a pause in some of the foreign currencies that were boosted up here yesterday. So you got oil down for the first time in 6 days as Trump indicated that he's holding off on any attack in Iran for now. It was a statement that also put that pause on the rally in the gold market. And then, of course, silver dropped after the U.S. refrained on imposing tariffs on the critical minerals. You're going to have some earnings announcements today, some big ones. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, First Horizon, those are all expected to report ahead of the opening bell. Then you're going to have that January Empire Manufacturing and Philly Fed business outlook are expected at 7:30 a.m. Central Time. You're going to have Fed's Goolsbee, Bostic, Barkin, Barr and also Schmidt all speaking at events. So quite a few Fed speakers coming out here. See if it has any impact on the dollar, 10-year treasury yields, the gold market as well. We'll also want to look at the correlation matrix between some of these key assets here in the dollar index, which has been rising recently. Now you look at the CME's Fed Watch tool, markets are anticipating only about a 5% chance that the Fed cuts rates at that January meeting. Where you go out to March, it's about 26%. So while it's rising here, January just seems to be all but forgotten. You go to the dollar index sitting at 98.96, the euro currency 116.66. I'm seeing a lot of banks out there giving up on their long euro, their bearish dollar prediction here to start out the year. You look at 10-year treasury yields kind of backing off here, 4.14% in that range of 4.11 on up to 4.22. The key area of resistance that I'm watching on the 10-year futures is going to be about 112.24. Now you look at the January VIX sitting at about 1683. It popped up over 17 yesterday, well below that 20 line here. The short positioning in the VIX is one of the most extreme it's been in about 15 years. So you look at Bitcoin sitting right around that 97 mark, recapturing that. So real nice boost on the Bitcoin market and the cryptocurrencies across the board in the last few days. One of the markets that looks like it's come back down to support that I'm going to be eyeing is XRP. And if you go to Bitcoin, you want to look at that key level of trend support right around 87,270. The S&P gamma exposure sits positive. And then where all the action in the equity markets really took place in Europe as those stocks extended a record-breaking advance after tech stocks rallied after TSMC. And then the MSCI Asia Pacific Index, it traded in a narrow range. It rose as much as 0.2. That comes after earlier dropping at 0.3%, really consolidated after 3 straight days of gains. However, you saw TSMC, it was sliding ahead of it reporting results, and then once those reports came out, that's where this rally took place across the board. So I'll be in Chicago. It's only 1 degree. Man, it was a brutal walk across the city. Holy moly. Pretty tough. So I gotta say, it makes you tough here when you're breathing in that wind chill air here. Pretty brisk. So you guys got any questions? Be in the office here. Gonna put out the you guys should be getting the chart back here. We're putting that out. Also the Metals Edge, got a lot of great content in there. Some of the highlights from the video that I do in the morning here. Also give you some of the probable, the tactical ranges here that adjust with volatility. So a lot of good content, adding a few charts in there as well. So you guys got any questions? Shoot an email, info@bluelinefutures.com. We love to work with you over here. My partner Bill Baruch, he'll be on CNBC later on today outlining some of the plays here. We've got a lot of these tech, we've got a lot of these AI names in the portfolio. So if you like to consider maybe doing something on the wealth management side, if commodities aren't for you, some of the volatility here, although they have increased the number of those smaller, those micro, those mini contracts. We're going to have a 100-ounce silver contract. Another great thing here. Product I've been working with the exchange on for quite a long time about developing. But again, you got any questions, shoot an email, info@bluelinefutures.com. Remember, futures option trading does involve risk of loss. May not be suitable to all investors. Good luck. Good trading.
Futures trading involves a substantial risk of loss and may not be suitable for all investors. Therefore, carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your financial condition.